just the build up into the second verse, and then at the very end, oh baby, like, just a fucking beast, like, vocal beast. And, you know, they're not like dance records, but it's like, it's records you could kind of, you know, you could do a little, I gotta shake it on, that ain't the same, and you know what I mean? She's penning these songs herself. She's coming up with the vocal arrangements, like the harmonies, the runs, the chorus. She's writing the words, and her lyrics are crazy too. Like she throwing SAT vocabulary ass words in her writing. Even when I'm not going through a breakup, I just put that shit on and just be break, steady breaking me down. Such a good song, such a good song. Hello, divine friends and family. It's your girl Nerese, and I'm finally back at the House of Divinity. Yes, I know it's been a hot minute, but if anybody follows my Instagram page or my music page on YouTube, Nerese is the name of the page, then you would see that your girl has been producing content. I have been quite busy. You know, I'm just still trying to create the structure for the content creation for all my profiles and my pages. Because, you know, I have my music page and I've been doing covers and stuff like that. I'm working on another project that I'm very excited about that should be coming out soon. I'm just, you know, working through the details and, you know, dotting my I's and crossing my T's. And then also, like, you know, coming up with content on YouTube. I mean, sorry. Yes, YouTube. But, you know, IG, and then I'm trying to get into TikTok. You know, I was with TikTok for a period of time and I started noticing some traction, and then I started mostly focusing on IG. So, you know, I'm still trying to figure out like the balance, but I have been consistently making content. So that had been a struggle for me for a period of time because I was so like about the aesthetics, and my aesthetic taste then wasn't as great as my aesthetics now. But, you know, I'm figuring out like what works for me, what's my system, you know, where I'm heavy on aesthetics, which is usually like my musical stuff, versus social media is where you kind of get a sense of more of the inspirational content. And then also like clips of me performing to, like, I'll promote like my covers and live performances on IG. And, you know, it's mostly empowerment tea, but I'm thinking of other ways to have different type of content so you all can, you know, get a sense of me and all the things that encompass Nerese. Because aside from the fact that I sing and I'm an artist and, you know, and I love music and I love to discuss music. So, but yeah, I've been missing this channel for a minute. It's just, I have like this whole set over here. Like it takes kind of work to build this whole thing, and as you know, I'm very much about aesthetics. And I've just been focusing on music, which is something that I felt like I kind of fell out of. So I'm just, you know, trying to balance all the things that I do and, you know, keep the girls entertained, darling. So, but here we are back at the House of Divinity, and I wanted to come back talking about Beyonce's album, which I will, you know, but I really wanted to talk about my girl Mariah, because I made a short clip talking about Honey. I might insert that in this video once I get to that part. But I was like, oh my gosh, like Honey, the runs in this song is so great, and I feel like people sleep on it. And then I saw Mariah post that the 25th anniversary for the Butterfly album was coming up. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect. I should do an album review and just review the whole album. And, you know, that'll be my comeback to House of Divinity. And so here we are, shooting, filming, editing, getting back into the House of Divinity, and talking about my girl Mariah. You know, I've mentioned her in some of my previous videos, like, you know, briefly, but I haven't had a reason to really like film a full video about Mariah. I mean, I don't really need a reason to. But you know, I try to do things that's based on what's happening in real time. And so being that the 25th anniversary is coming up, I feel like why not talk about the full album. It's one of my favorite albums like of all time, as well as like one of my favorites of hers, if not my favorite. And you know, I'm just excited to talk about it and get into the nitty-gritties of the songs that I've grown up loving. Like, this album came out a year after I was born. She was killing the charts with Daydream and having so many #1 records when that album came out the year that I was born. And you know, it's interesting because, you know, I feel like some elements of Daydream inspired this album, and of course they were like right after each other. So, you know, we'll talk about all of those things. So basically, I'm excited. Let's get into it. I'm not going to prolong this much longer, but I wanted to, like, you know, give you all an update on what I've been doing and really get a chance to sit and talk about it, you know, because I've been doing a bunch of short form content, like, you know, with the videos and stuff, and so I don't really get a chance to like talk and explain myself unless it's like the caption, and even the captions are limited, and you know, I can talk, okay? So so yeah, I'm excited to talk about this album. I've loved this album for so many years, and you know, kudos and flowers to Mariah Carey, because you know, she's a living legend, like, and while she's still here with us, you know, because a lot of the greats that came from her era, there's not many of them that's still alive. And so being that she's still here to celebrate her own 25th anniversary to her album, I feel like it's important for us to really talk about great artists and get into the nitty-gritties of all the elements that make an artist great. And, you know, not only her as a vocalist, but as a songwriter and a producer who can arrange these records. And, you know, me as an artist as well, I always draw a lot of inspiration from her. Just as a singer, as a songwriter, as someone who produces my own records. And, you know, go through the whole creative process and just some of the stuff that she's been through in her personal life of just trying to navigate this world on her own and just having that dream, and literally that dream being the only solace that she had in life, and you know, and her just never giving up to seeing it through. You know, just her story is such an inspiration to me just as much as the music. So, you know, for anybody who like knows me, like, you know, Mariah is my girl, you know, and I literally was a kid growing up singing along to her records, singing along to the ad-libs, and, you know, trying to hit the notes with her. And she shaped my approach in a lot of the songs that I do vocally, like Aloe on the Divine EP. That was a huge Mariah inspiration, you know. Oh yeah, yeah, you know, just like little runs. I forget what song was the inspiration of that. Come and take me away. But the oh yeah, like very Mariah, you know. So she's a huge inspiration for me, and you know, I just want to give her her love and celebrate her and her 25th anniversary to this album, and the album that shaped me as an artist. So without further ado, let's get into it. So just so y'all know that my love for Mariah is really real, I have several records of hers down here. I have, as you can see, we have the Butterfly record on display. I don't have it on vinyl, but because of this 25th anniversary, she's releasing like I think a new reissue of the album with a bunch of like extra songs on there, so I'm excited about that. And I think she's coming out with a color vinyl, like a gold vinyl, so I might be trying to get that. But I do have Emancipation of Mimi over here, which is like my second favorite album of hers. But I have the teacup. This is like my singer's cup. You know, when I'm rehearsing and I gotta make tea, you know. you know, for the Mariah Carey vibrations. And plus, like, it has like a gold color on it. Hold on. You know what? Let me just show y'all, because I'm pretty sure y'all can't really see it from back here. But, you know, it has keep calm and carry on. So cute. And this came out when she came out with the book, The Meaning of Mariah Carey. So that's like what it says over here. I don't know if y'all can see this. I feel like a makeup guru trying to show y'all products. But, you know, and it has like the pearlized iridescent design on it. And y'all, you know, if you're familiar with my artistry, on my videos, on my YouTube channel as an artist, I like to edit with like a particular border just to set a aesthetic and a vibe for my like signature look, or, you know, my signature style as an editor. And I like to do like iridescent borders and cosmic images and stuff like that. And like she's very big into like rainbows and iridescent colors and iridescent eyes or lights. Something, I don't know. I gotta double check the lyrics on that one. Stays preserved in my mind. Yeah. Or is it incandescent? I forget. I'm gonna double check. But, you know, she's very much a part of the like iridescent kind of like rainbow color vibes. And, you know, I see you, Mariah. And speaking of rainbow, actually, another piece of merch that I got during Pride last year. You know, you never know when you gotta throw a little shade, darling. You know, and just fan yourself off when people try to throw a little shade at you, you know. So, yeah, you know, I had to show off my little Mariah merch just to let y'all know the love is real. So, okay, enough of my like hype up into this. So let's get into the Butterfly album. So the first song on Butterfly is Honey, which happened to be the first single from this album. I don't remember the order of singles because I was literally 2. And you know, I could have looked that up, but I more so wanted to discuss, like, break down the sonics of each song and just the layers and the vibe of the album. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So Honey, let's talk about Honey. And you know, Honey is definitely one of my favorites on the album. Yeah, so Honey is one of the few upbeat songs that's on the album. And, you know, it's that upbeat pop, hip hop influence track with, I forget the name of the sample. I'll write it up here. But, you know, there's that classic sample that she has in the song. Yeah, I just love this record. It's such a feel-good song. You can dance to it. It's such a vibe. And I love the video so much. Like, you know, it was definitely like honey tone colors, which is what I was trying to give y'all today. You know, got a little honey golden lip happening here, some golden eyeshadow. You know, I have to rock my Divine merch, which is available on Nerisse.com if you want to cop some of that. We have t-shirts and hoodies and such in black and white. So check that out. And then, you know, I just had to give you all like a honey brown, you know, color palette vibe for this album and to match, you know, the album cover. So, and the video was very much that color palette and aesthetic. And I love the video for that. And something about this song that I feel like isn't discussed enough is the runs and the vocal agility that she has throughout this record. Because for one, it's just a pop song, right? It's not like this is some like revolutionary ballad happening here. But she did not hold back with the vocals, okay? Like, and the thing is, something that amazed me is the fact that it seems as though she never ran out of runs, you know? And her structure in writing songs is, you know, pretty standard. You know, it starts off, you know, pretty mellow. Usually it builds up a little bit in the first verse or first chorus. Second chorus is a little bit like, okay, you might get some belting a little bit and there's more runs. And then, you know, the last chorus or the bridge at the end is usually like the big vocal moment. And you'll see that structure of vocal arrangement throughout this whole album. There might be some exceptions where certain songs are you know, a little bit more like laid back, you know, but we'll get into that. So, you know, her traditional vocal structure and vocal arrangements that she would have for a ballad was pretty similar here. And this was a song that was really fun, and you can tell she probably had a lot of fun arranging the runs and doing the vocals in the background, because there's so many moving parts sonically in this song. And this is kind of like a rant that I was going on. Well, not a rant, but I was like, you know, just really like giving her flowers. And I'll probably insert some of that clip in here too, or I might repeat myself. I don't know. We'll see. Hello, Divine Ones. It's your girl, Nerese. And, you know, I just had a little think piece for a moment, because earlier today I revisited Mariah Carey's Butterfly album, which was an album that I grew up loving because she was one of the first people that I would like try to sing along to when it comes to like runs and everything. And so I was just thinking, like, I was listening to Honey, and I feel like Honey is like an underrated record, because like her vocals on that song is amazing. And it's a pop song. Like, it's a pop song. And then she got the remix with, like, you know, Bad Boys and Mason, all of them. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's cute. It's fun. But, like, if you really dissect the vocals on that record, it's like, yo, she really did not hold back at all. Like, she's running through the whole song. Like, the whole song is basically her doing runs. And for some reason, she did not run out of runs. It didn't feel like she was repeating runs. And if she did, she was doing it like intentionally repeating them. And you know, like, and then she'll switch it up. Like, why? Why is she so amazing? And the thing is, like, how she did a build up throughout the song. Like, the beginning of the song is like low runs, and it's like and it's like, you know, really low, and but like she's still like slaying y'all with the runs. Oh, honey, you can have me when you want me. Like, she starts the verse on a run. And then, like, right before the second verse, like, let me see if I can remember. I feel like I always mess it up. Oh, honey. Yeah, yeah, oh, honey, you can have me. Or whatever the words are. I should know by now. But, you know, like, just the build up into the second verse. And then at the very end. Oh, baby, like, just a fucking beast, like, vocal beast. And Mariah Carey does not have enough flowers for me. Like, we know she's a legend, she's an icon, she's one of the, like, last pillar, like, vocalists of our time that came from like that 90s era of like her, Whitney, and Celine and everybody. Like, she's one of the last like divas. And, you know, she don't get enough flowers for me. Like, she's my girl, so I'm always going to give her flowers. But, you know, just, and the thing is, she's a songwriter too. It's not like she was given these songs and she like, all right, look, I'm gonna just add my own little flair to it. Like, no, she's penning these songs herself. She's coming up with the vocal arrangements, like the harmonies, the runs, the chorus. She's writing the words, and her lyrics are crazy too. Like, she throwing SAT vocabulary ass words in her writing. Like, people are not seeing Mariah Carey, okay? They're just not. They're not seeing her, and they can't see her. You know what I'm saying? And shout out to her getting inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, because she deserves. She been deserved. But, you know, I just had to go off for Mariah because I was really listening to this song like I usually do. Like, I grew up like piecing out the parts and everything and listening to every run in detail. But I'm like, I really gotta go in on this song real quick because people really sleep on how dope Honey is. Like, Honey is really that shit. Like, aside from the fact that it's a pop song and it's cute and it's fun, like, vocally, she's beasting on this song. It's your girl, Nerese. You know I gotta give my girl Mariah some flowers, so I'm outie. it was fun. And then you get to see her sexy side a little bit, you know, like, okay, it's just like honey. Okay, what kind of honey we talking about, Mariah? You know what I mean? But it's cute. I love it. And, you know, this is like the only upbeat record on the song. I mean, the only upbeat record on the album. And that was one of my only things that I didn't care for. But then again, like, it wasn't like a big thing of mine. You know, I just feel like, you know, I was like, ooh, yes. Like, all right, okay. You know, give us an upbeat jam. And there wasn't a whole lot of that on this album. But it was fine because it was such a vibe. But, you know, later on in her career, you start to see her incorporate more upbeat songs. Like, Emancipation of Mimi has, like, you know, It's Like That and Shake It Off. And, you know, they're not like dance records, but it's like, it's records you could kind of, you know, you could do a little, I gotta shake it off, that ain't the same, and you know what I mean? But, you know, this album wasn't giving that, and that's okay. Yeah, so that was my main thing for Honey. Then we go into Butterfly. Now, my only thing is that I'm not crazy about the transition between songs because we literally go from like the most upbeat song to like the most laid back ballad record, you know, and I was like, okay, just when you finish, like, you know, and I guess that's like a moment for you to catch your breath, you know, but like, I'm like, this is the one upbeat song. You could have gave us something a little bit in between, you know, but it was fine though, because I love Butterfly. So Butterfly is your classic adult contemporary type of ballad. Definitely one of those records for your early Mariah Carey fans, like when she first came into the game and she got all these, like, you know, adult contemporary songs. And you know what's interesting? Something that I realized about Mariah is that as her catalog grew and the older that she got, the younger her music started to sound, you know? Whereas like in the very beginning of her career, when she was very young and she was first entered into the game, you know, she wanted to be more in the R&B space, but how Tommy Mottola and everybody at Sony at the time wanted to shape her into this, like, you know, this white girl that can sing adult contemporary music. And I mean, it helped her get far along in her career. But she'll even say that when Vision of Love came out, it charted on R&B first before it went, like, I guess like Hot 100 or something. And it was a #1 record. And that was like her debut album, her whole debut. Iconic, just iconic behavior. But it's interesting to see, like, you know, the older that she gets, the younger her music starts to sound. And I think that is attributed to the fact that she incorporates more like hip hop and R&B sonics within her music these days. And then you have albums like Caution, you know, and I'm not gonna lie, this is a little bit of a tangent, but you know, I'm not gonna lie, at first when Caution came out and I heard some of the songs, I was like, Mariah, you know, because I was like, it just, to me, it sounded like she was trying to be hip with the TikTok kids, you know what I mean? Like with the lingo and all of that, like One More Again, what's the mother, like just the titles of the songs and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna feel about this album. But then I listened to the songs and I'm like, okay, Mariah, you did that. Because, you know, my girl can write a song. You know, she can write a song, she can sing her face off, and she can make it a bop. You know, and she's one of those artists where, like, regardless of how they age, she'll always be relevant and fresh with the times. You know, just in terms of her style and how she approaches music. And I feel like what really kept her relevant in terms of her sound is, you know, incorporating those hip hop elements and R&B. Because hip hop and R&B is a very, like, especially hip hop, it's a very young type of genre. Like, whatever is hot right now is, you know, what's curating the sound. Of course, you got your old school R&B, but when it was out, it was like, it was a young guy's sport, you know? So there's always that sense of youth when it comes to hip hop. And I feel like her incorporating that into her music towards like a little early on in her career, Within the 90s, it was like mid 90s when she started doing that, which we first saw with Daydream and her having ODB on Fantasy. You know, that was her kind of implementing those hip hop sounds and influences. And I feel like that's what helped to bridge her to new generations. And, you know, because let's be real, a very specific demographic of Mariah Carey fans, let alone just people, you know, can appreciate those early Mariah Carey records of, you know, Emotions and, you know, Make It Happen, Vision of Love, Love Takes Time. But those are very like old school sounding songs. You know what I mean? Like they sound like they're from that time. But she's had a way of reinventing herself and always staying true to herself. And don't get me wrong, like her albums, even in these last few years, she'll still have those, you know, classic ballads, because I mean those are the songs that she can show off her vocals. But you know, when she started implementing those hip hop like vibes, I think that's what really bridged her into staying relevant through the years. And plus, like, that's just music that she likes and she's good at writing to, you know. And I love that she's one of those artists that can do both. She can give you the adult contemporary, you know, pop records, or the you know, slightly R&B records, and then she can give you full-on hip-hop and do a record with, you know, Cameron or Busta Rhymes, and, you know, and do music with Jermaine Dupri. And you know something that's kind of crazy to me? I'm really going off on this tangent, and then we're going to get back into the album. But this is the last point. But I didn't know for a long time that Jermaine Dupri produced Always Be My Baby. You know, because it's one of those really pop songs, you know, sounding songs. Everybody knows that song. And it transcends, you know, demographics. But I never knew that Jermaine Dupri was the producer of that song. And then, you know, the whole crazy story of her running away, you know, from her house or whatever with the brat and the security. When they were recording the remix version with Escape, doing backgrounds, you know, she was literally escaping out the house. Kind of crazy. But, you know, I knew he did the remix version, but I didn't know that he did the original song too. And I was like, okay, that showed me versatility that Jermaine Dupri had that I didn't even know. You know what I mean? Because I knew him primarily for doing like R&B, you know, traditional R&B, like with Usher and Criss Cross and, you know, Bow Wow and everybody, and even, you know, records with Janet. And I knew he worked with Mariah, but I didn't know that he did that song. So anyway, that's just my tangent on, you know, her versatility within her music. So back to the album. Butterfly. It's your classic ballad, you know, classic build up, you know, piano, dun, 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 like, you know, beautiful melodies. And what's interesting about that song, which I never knew until she explained in her book, Meaning of Mariah Carey. If you hadn't read it, you should. It's amazing. So many great stories, and it gives a lot of context to a lot of the songs on this album, for real. And just what she was going through in her life and what inspired her to write how she did. And the beautiful thing about this song is that she wrote it from the perspective of Tommy Mottola, you know, what she hoped that he would have, how she hoped he would have handled their divorce. And even though it was the complete opposite, you know, she wrote it from the perspective of how she would have wanted him to, you know, feel about that situation. Like, you know, I have to let you go. I have to let you fly, you know. And even the video, you know, and I think she had a lot of control in her videos, where she gave a lot of the ideas and the concepts, and it reflected what she was going through in her life. And that was one of the things, using the horse to symbolize her. And she was singing it as if she had to let the horse go, but really she was really singing about, you know, how she hoped that he would let her go, because he kept her captive, basically. You know, she lived this beautiful, luxurious life in this beautiful home with him, but she had no freedom when she married him. And she was young and she didn't know that, you know. And this was a pivotal time where, you know, she was getting into her hot girl era. She was feeling herself. She was expressing herself through fashion how she wanted to. She got to wear the ensembles that she wanted to wear. And, you know, she just kind of broke out of those pantsuits and, you know, ankle long dresses. No shade to the pantsuits and ankle long dresses. But baby girl ain't want to wear that. She wanted to be a hot girl, you know. And I feel her. Like, she's grown, you know. And she started actually talking to men she was attracted to, you know. No shade, but shade. And, you know, and you can see the shift throughout this album. And Butterfly was one of those big moments. Aside from Honey, too. Like, Honey was also one of those songs where you see her breaking out in her, you know, sexuality or sensuality as a woman. And with the video and just, like, the lyrics in the song. And it was fun, you know. And you got to see her get into that side of herself, which is exciting, you know, for any woman when you go through that. Like, I've been through that in my own life, you know, of just trying to navigate and figure yourself out, figure out your swag and your style, and you know, and embracing your sensuality without feeling like, you know, ashamed or criticized by other people. You know, as women, we should be able to express that. And so, you know, she was during that era. And Butterfly was one of those songs that spoke to her freedom and her coming out. And mind you, she was years into her career at this point. And people would criticize her like, oh, why is she dressing like this and that? And she's really dressing like herself, how she always wanted to dress. You know, so that was a very big thing at that time too. And just sonically with the song, it's just a beautiful song, you know. The lyrics are beautiful. What does she say in the second verse? I forget, but it's one of those songs where she throw in one of those SAT words. And I'm like, okay, Mariah, let me go look this up. Because I never heard this word before. But since you said it, let me go study. You know? So shout out to Mariah being one of those people who inspired me to get my vocabulary up just a little bit, you know? And this is one of those songs where the structure has a build-up where, you know, a lot of the beginning of the song is like very falsetto. And it's not too much belting, not too much chest voice. And even in the chorus, you know, there's the choir that's there, beautiful, beautiful parts on the choir. And then she's doing a lot of the runs, but it's like, no, that sounded like Honey. But I'm trying to think, hold on. I'm trying to think. See, when I try to pull from these songs, like from my brain, while like shooting, I'm like, hold on, which song am I singing? But you know, she has similar runs that she does throughout different songs, which is kind of crazy. And there's times where she'll do so many different kinds of runs. And I'm like, you know, sometimes it's similar to her signature sound, and then sometimes she'll do a variation of the same run. Like, amazing. But, you know, anyway, back to the structure. And then, you know, the second verse, it amps up a little bit, and then she really goes all out with the bridge. And she's singing chest voice most of the song, and then at the very end, and, you know, she's going to town with the vocals. Amazing. 10s across the board. Then we have My All. My All is another personal favorite of mine. I've always loved this song, especially when it would come on the radio. Like, you know, the old school R&B stations and stuff like that growing up. I would love when this song would come on. Just because, like, it was kind of like Quiet Storm vibes, but it was different because it had, like, those Spanish guitar vibes. And it was just, like, a classic ballad, you know, but it didn't sound like everything else that was out there in the world. You know, it definitely sounded different. And it sounded different than some of the stuff that she was already doing on this album. Because, I mean, granted, even though I wish there were more upbeat songs, a majority of the album are ballads. And even though there's so many ballads, they all have their own element that makes them different than everything else. Like Butterfly being that classic adult contemporary type of song. And then you have My All, you know, another ballad, another love song. But, you know, there's that kind of like that, you know, the Spanish guitar element to it that makes it sound so different. And, you know, this is another one of those songs where she has her traditional structure build up, but it's just written a little bit differently. Like the beginning is very like airy and falsetto and soft, and then it builds up in the chorus. The first chorus is very falsetto. I give my all to have just one more night with you. Like just very light, you know. And then the second verse is still light, but then she slowly builds it up a little bit. And you know, something I didn't realize until doing, like making notes for this review, because I've heard these songs like all my life, but then when I really had to like pinpoint what points that I wanted to bring up, I realized, I was like, my all doesn't have a bridge. You know, it's just that part where it's like the guitar solo and she's doing the runs. Like just singing along with the guitar. I realized, I was like, wait, there's no bridge on this song. You know, so it's just like that kind of like music break happening there. But she's singing along, and then there's harmonies too. And you know, her harmonies slay every time. And then she amps up the chorus. And, you know, she's like belting the chorus at this point. To this day, I don't attempt to sing that song. It's a song that I would really have to work on. I could probably do it, like if I gave it time and energy. You know, I'm not just going to try to wing it for this video because y'all not going to catch me slipping like that. But, but, you know, vocals are vocaling, of course, per usual. But it's that classic structure that she has where it's soft in the beginning, it's a slow build up, and then, you know, she, you know, belts the end. And the interesting thing was something that nobody really knew until she spilled her tea in the book was that she wrote this about Derek Jeter, which was, I think Honey might be about him too. I don't know, maybe, possibly. I feel like it would be. You know, a lot of these songs was about him, for real. And I'm just like, thank you, Derek Jeter, for being the inspiration and the muse for Mariah to write these songs. Because I would not have known until she said something. But she was saying, like, during a time, I think around like the divorce era with Tommy Motorola, and they had like a little getaway in Puerto Rico, and she said they never did anything, but I'm like, okay, Mariah, whatever, you know. But they had like this little getaway in Puerto Rico, and I don't know if she was still with Tommy at this point, or she was like towards the end, like going through the process of the divorce, and she wrote the lyrics like, I give my all to have just one more night with you. I'd risk my life to feel your body next to mine, you know, like, and she was saying that because she literally felt like she was risking her life because, you know, she was so scared of Tommy Mottola at this time. And so was the people around him. Like, you know, like everybody was so intimidated by him. And she felt like she was risking her life because there was at one point where he like put a butter knife to her face or something like that. Like something crazy. Like the man was a little bit wildin', you know. But she was literally saying like, I'd risk my life to go be with Derek Jeter because she loved him, basically, you know. And, you know, the great thing about her relationship with him was that, you know, not only was he biracial, which I never knew until she said that, because I don't follow baseball like that. You know, I played softball back in the day. Shout out to, you know, my old softball team, Western. But, you know, I didn't really follow baseball. Like, I enjoyed playing it, but I never really cared to watch the sport. So, I mean, you know, I don't really know too much about him. But apparently he is biracial, and his family was the first example of a biracial family that wasn't chaotic, because of her upbringing was like tumultuous with, you know, her father being separated from her mom, and then her older siblings and them, you know, being like, you know, her brother being aggressive and somewhat abusive, and like her sister like drugging her and all this stuff that went on with her growing up. And I'm like, girl, I feel that. But you know, he was one of the first people that, you know, came from a similar background, but actually had parents that loved one another, and a family that was, you know, that felt wholesome. And, you know, and so a lot of that inspired what she wrote in this record. Shout out to the book, because that's where most of the tea is. But yeah, I love My All. Beautiful song, beautiful lyrics, and just like the melody and everything, and the runs and harmonies. Like, she's not gonna fail there, you know, like runs, harmonies, song structure, stacking vocals, you know, she be on it with that. So the next song after My All is The Roof, Back in Time, which is another record about Mr. Jeter. And, you know, this one apparently, well, not apparently, like, you know, the Lambs know, like, this is a Lamb favorite. Even though it wasn't a huge single, you know, all the Lambs love this record. And, you know, the funny thing is, I've listened to this record for a long time, but there were very select, like, few songs that I would go back to. And this is one of those songs that I skipped and later on found out it was fire by accident, because it was one year when I was like in middle school, I believe. And I got a iPod Classic for Christmas. And I'm pretty sure like my brother put the music on the iPod, because, you know, he was really the first one who put me onto Mariah. So shout out to my brother for that. Because he listened to like Bone Thugs and Harmony. We're gonna get there, but not the Bone Thugs and Harmony song that y'all think, but it's I Still Believe. And, you know, for a long time I've been trying to find that song, and I didn't know who the artist was, and I was like, I Still Believe by Mariah Carey, and it would show the Brenda K. Starr cover and not the Crazy Bone version. But that was the first time I really heard of Mariah Carey, through my brother, because he listened to Bone Thugs and Harmony and Busta Rhymes and Biggie Smalls, and I was like, who that singing, you know? And then, you know, that was the start of me like going into the rabbit hole of being a Mariah Carey fan. Anyway, so it's Christmas, I got my iPod, and I'm like, oh, okay, there's some songs on here. iPod Classic was like my favorite iPod to have. Even when there were like newer ones coming out, they didn't have as much memory as the Classic, and I had a lot of music to put on the iPod, so I loved my Classic. And I went to, you know, I would always listen by artists, or I would listen to shuffle, and usually like my favorite songs that I would rate on the iPod would show up mostly. And so I was like, okay, let me go to the Mariah section. Go to the Mariah. Wasn't no Mariah songs. I'm like, what is this? Like, y'all know I love Mariah. But, you know, grateful with gratitude. I was grateful to have the iPod. Don't get me wrong. You know, I was looking for my girl. But there were two songs on this record, on the iPod by Mariah Carey. It was Breakdown, featuring Bone Thugs and Harmony, of course, and The Roof. And I've never heard of The Roof at this point. So I was like, what is this Roof song? Like, I knew Breakdown, so that was my song. Like, I loved that song at that point. But I had never heard The Roof. So I listened to The Roof, and I was like, oh my God, why did I not know this song? Like, this is so good. And, you know, and now that I think back on it, knowing that it's a Mobb Deep sample with Shook Ones, that's probably why that record was on the iPod, because my brother probably knew Shook Ones by Mobb Deep, and it was like, you know, and that's probably why he knew that song, which makes a lot of sense, you know. And there's that like bridging between worlds of like, you know, this adult contemporary R&B pop vocalist and her hip-hop influences, and using those hip-hop, you know, hip-hop songs and sampling that into the music. So, you know, yeah, it was interesting. So I remember listening to that song on repeat that day. Like, we were going to visit family for Christmas, and like the whole ride up, I had like my headphones in, and I was listening to that song on repeat. And I just kept listening to that ending. Like, usually what I would do is like find my favorite like ad lib or run. Or, you know, when you listen to a song for the first time, and then it's like those runs that kind of like, ooh, what's that? You know, like for the vocalists and like music fans, like y'all know what I'm talking about. When it's like, ooh, okay. You know, and so I would listen to that part like on repeat. And I would try to get that run like towards the very end, like right before the last chorus. That, what part is it? Baby, I'm missing you every time. Like that part, I would listen to that like a million times. And that was like my favorite song for the day, you know? And yeah, that was how I found The Roof. And I didn't know that that was a single too. Like, I didn't know until like recently that there was a video for that song. Not recently, maybe like a few years ago, maybe like 15 years ago or something like that. But it wasn't until like well after I knew of the song that I saw that there was a video. I was like, oh, okay, look at that. But yeah, love that song. And the cool thing about that is that this is another one of those records with the hip hop influence. Because, well, the story of how she wrote the song is kind of crazy. But, you know, I think her assistant helped her like sneak out of the house to meet Derek Jeter. And they were having like this rendezvous moment where they had to sneak in the back of a cafe and like meet at some rooftop somewhere. And, you know, they were hanging out or whatever. And then it was a warm November night, which she says on the song. And it starts raining. And it was just like, you know, this magical moment for her. And then I think on her way back to, I don't know if it was that same night, but on her way back to Sing Sing is what she would call the mansion that she lived in. That was like a prison to her. I know too much about Mariah Carey. It's like, why? But on the way back, Shook Ones played on the radio. And she was singing along to the song and coming up with The Roof as she was listening to this record. So it's just so crazy how like inspiration comes to you like that. And I know how that is. Like, you could be in a car and you hear something and it's like, ooh, that melody is kind of like, you know, a vibe. And then you start to want to write to it. And that was how she wrote that song. And it's so crazy because it's like, girl, you know, and shout out to Derek. Like, shout out to Derek for being the inspo for these records. But, you know, something that's really cool, another element, like sonically, what's really cool about that song is that, oh, I know this video is going to be long. We're 4 songs in. It's 12. My gosh. All right. This is why I don't really do album reviews like this, because I get into the nitty gritties. Like, I get into like the songs, the sonics of it, the structure, the backgrounds, the story behind what happened and what inspired the song, a story in my own life, how I discovered the song. Like, oh my gosh, this is too much. But you know, it's content, and I hope you all enjoy this. But something else that I did really like about The Roof is because it has like that dark tone with it. And her runs in the song were like very minor-y. Shout out to the music people who, you know, just go along with me. There's this one run that I remember like hearing, and it just sounds so different than all the other songs on the album because of just the general tone of that song. And it's just like very like jazzy too, where she'll sing like just like very like I don't know, just like a smoky vibe to the vocals. And she gets into her low register in this song too, which I do really like. I can't think of the run now. I was thinking of it while I was putting my notes together. Like, if you see me look down, it's because I'm looking at my notes.
Man, what about on my notes?
And I try not to talk when I'm looking at my notes, but look, y'all just gonna have to work with me. I ain't do these videos in a minute, so I'm just gonna do my best. Okay, that was pretty much everything that I wanted to say about The Roof. 4th of July. This was another one of those songs that I discovered later on. I remember I was hanging out with a friend who was a vocalist at a time. At the time I was hanging out with them. And we were kind of like bonding over like Mariah Carey and, you know, just like B-side records from Mariah Carey, like Lead the Way, on Glitter and how people sleep on how great Glitter is of an album, you know, even though it's like people like shit on the movie, and it's like, okay, it's valid, like the movie wasn't as great as it could have been. And she'll even say that because, you know, she had to rework the script multiple times and she couldn't really put out the movie how she wanted to put it out. But the music, man, like it's a solid album. Like the soundtrack to Glitter is a solid album. And Lead the Way, like we literally had a Lead the Way run challenge like a few years ago to a record that came out almost 20 years ago. Like that's how you know the test of time, okay? Anyway, so we were having a moment and we were talking about just like B-side records by Mariah Carey. And she was like, do you know 4th of July? And I'm like, no, I don't know 4th of July. Very much like Whitney.
I don't think of her.
I don't think of her. Anyway, but we're not gonna shade my girl on her video. But y'all know that clip, it's funny. Anyway, so I didn't know that song at the time. And then so she played it and she was like, you know, like it's just like such a good ballad and song. Okay, 4th of July is really cute. I do like that song. And it was one of those songs that I slept on for a period of time. Because again, like I love this album, but I would only listen to very specific songs. Like I don't think I listened to the album start to finish until like, I don't know, many years after already like being committed to the songs that I loved. And so I listened to this song and I was like, oh my gosh, wait, this is really cool. Like, you know, very pretty. You know, I think the sound of the song reflected the context. Like, you know, 4th of July, fireworks and stuff like that. Like, it sounded like sparkles with the piano in the beginning. Starry eyes. And it was one of the few songs where you can really hear her display her whistle tone. She sang that I think a little bit in Butterfly. Like you could hear it in the backgrounds in Butterfly. Like she'll do that. She'll put her whistle tones in the background. And this was one of those songs where you hear that in the beginning and the intro. And it's very like very chill R&B, you know, kind of a record, very like sexy kind of thing. This song reminded me of Baby Doll. Just like the vibe of it. And I'll get more into that when Baby Doll comes up. But yeah, I feel like the beat of the song felt like sparkly, like a night of fireworks, you know? And it was like very smooth and sexy. Like, you know, she was really getting into her sexy bag with this one. But, you know, I love how Mariah does sexy. She doesn't do sexy in a way that feels like vulgar. Or, and you know, even if it is vulgar, it's fine because we love people like Lil' Kim that take it there, you know, and the rap girls that do that now. But, you know, I love how she makes sexy and music very like poetic. She has a poetic way of writing sexy songs. And I love that. And this is one of those ones. And that's pretty much all I have to say about 4th of July. I like that record. I did like a mini cover of it on my other channel. Please don't watch it. I might do another one, you know, revamped. But it was a few years ago where I was in a very traumatic state in my life at that point. But we're here now. But yeah, you know, I might do that again for 4th of July coming up. Even though we celebrate Juneteenth. So, beside the point. So, Breakdown. Yes, Breakdown. Definitely one of my favorites off this album. Like, favorite. Another one of those songs with that hip-hop vibe. And, you know, there's Bone Thugs and Harmony. Also, another thing, you know, P. Diddy helped produce a lot of those records with the hip-hop vibes. Like Honey, I think The Roof. I'm not 100% sure. Definitely this one, Breakdown. And Stevie J did the piano on this. So it's funny because, you know, the first time I heard about Stevie J was Love and Hip Hop. So like I know problematic Stevie J, but he did like do his musical thing on some classic records, you know, like I know he did stuff with like Biggie, and you know, and him being like laced through this album is like very interesting to me, and I didn't realize that until I looked at the credits while I was like doing, you know, my notes and everything, and I'm like, damn, CPJ is all up through this record. All right. And the piano part and breakdown is one of my favorite parts of the song. You know, like I just love how simplistic the melody is, but it's such a vibe. So anyway, let's get into breakdown. One of my all-time favorites. And something that I really loved about breakdown was how she approached the writing, because she said when she got to the chorus, she wrote the chorus with Bone Thugs and Harmony's cadence in mind, like just how they rap, like, you know, how they sing rap. They are the originators of sing rapping. So I mean, if we want to talk about something, we could talk about a thing. I'm pretty positive Bone Thugs and Harmony was one of them first people. I'm not saying they were the first ever. I'm pretty sure there was people in the 80s and early hip hop who was kind of doing a little bit of melody, but they made it a thing. Like, you know, the mumble rap that we got today, like I feel like it's a variation, like a branch on a tree that Bone Thugs and Harmony planted and watered. But anyway, but I thought it was really cool that Mariah, her approach to the chorus was kind of going off of how they do their melodies. And I never noticed that until she said it. And then when I listened to it back again, I was like, damn, that makes a lot of sense. You know, like just how she went about the, like how she wrote it and the feel of it. And I love that. And it's something about this song that I don't see anybody talking about, but me being the music nerd that I am, I'm going to talk about it. Breakdown is one of the most all right, how am I going to say this? Breakdown is one of the most well done, engineered songs. Like, period. You know, and it's, especially within this album. But because there's so many moving parts to that song, because like if you really think about it, Mariah already does a lot on her own when it comes to arranging and producing a song, especially the vocals. You know, like she'll do her harmonies, the main melody, she might have a whistle note in the background, she might be like doing like some talking stuff in the background, like, you know, and then she'll have like rounds going on where it might not necessarily be a harmony, but there's several different vocal tracks in the back being stacked on top of her doing like runs and belting and stuff like that. So just whoever does the engineering for Mariah is like really a GOAT for real. But then when you have Mariah and all these elements and how she writes her songs, and then you have Bone Thugs and Harmony, and you know, and they kind of do their thing and they're talking break down, ayy, steady breaking me on down, like, you know, and so having their vocals blended in with hers. And there's a part like, okay, so the first verse is mostly her, and then second verse, roll, roll, roll. I don't know what they're saying there, but you know that part, like at the towards the end of the second verse. Hey, 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 like they're doing vocal parts under that, and they don't come in until like the tail end of the second verse. And I didn't really, like, I know it because like I've sung along to it for many years, but I actively paid attention to it this time around, like when I put these notes together. And I was like, damn, this song is really like engineered really well. That's what I'm trying to say. The song is engineered really well. And I'm just like, you know, because it doesn't sound like overstuffed. You know, it doesn't sound like too much is going on at the same time. You can hear all the parts. And then like you hear the little cricket, like crickets, funny. You hear the little sounds in the background, right? As well as the piano part and the beat that comes in. And then you hear Mariah's, you know, vocal parts. And then you hear Bone Thugs vocal parts mixed in with Mariah's. And then that part right before Bone Thugs come in, that's kind of like amping them up before they, it'll break you down, only if you let it. But like, roll, 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 it'll break you down, you know, and then break down, and then Mariah's doing her own thing right on top of that. I love that part of the song because it's not really like a section, like it's not like a pre-hook or like a chorus or something. It's just kind of like a amp up filler moment, like a vamp kind of a thing. Is it a vamp? I know there's like probably a musical term for it, but I just love that part of the song because there's so much happening there. And everything just blends so well. Like, who would have thought Mariah Carey and Bone Thugs in harmony? Because they didn't think it at the time. Because I'm pretty sure Bone Thugs did an interview on Drink Champs. And they talked about, you know, meeting with Mariah to do that song. They're like, this white girl wants you to do this song, you know. And then Breakdown happened. Which is like another fan favorite. Like, we love that song down to this day. Shout out to the lambs out there. And you know, like just the engineering in that song, I was listening to it earlier today and I was just like, yo, whoever fucking mixed and mastered this shit really ate that shit up, you know. And then like her at the end, and she's belting all that, you know. And such a good song, you know. Like even when I'm not going through a breakup, I just put that shit on and just be break down, stay breaking me down. Not the camera stopping right there. Oh my gosh, I don't know how many takes I've done so far. We're only on breakdown. Oh my god, this is gonna be a long video, but I'm gonna be editing this for a minute. All right, I haven't edited a long video in a long time, but I gotta get this done. Anyway, I'm thinking with my editor brain, but I need to think with my like, presenting, hosting, you know, entertaining brain. Yeah, and something else about not fantasy. I did want to mention fantasy. Something else about Breakdown that's really dope is that I feel like Fantasy featuring ODB was the walking before like Breakdown could run. You know what I mean? And especially just like this album, like there's so much more hip hop in this album. And it's like, it's blended so well because there's a lot going on here. Like you got your ballads, you got your song like My All with the whole like Spanish vibe. Or should I not say Spanish? But I think she said Spanish guitar. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, y'all know what I mean. Respectfully. Please don't roast me in the comments, y'all. Child, they already tried to roast me in life, so just let me be great. Anyway, but y'all know what I'm saying. And then like, you know, then you got your ballads and you got your pop genres. Like she really like blended in a lot of different genres here. And I love that you see hip hop several times. You know, you have a little bit of hip hop with Honey, and then you have a little bit of hip hop with The Roof, and you have a little bit of hip hop with Breakdown. And they all sound different from one another, but they all sound phenomenal as songs and records. Like such good music. And my battery is about to die, but we're gonna keep it going for a second. Okay. Actually, no, I'm gonna change it. Alright, y'all, we back. You know, I had to get my life together. My nail done broke. Sorry. My nail done broke. Not broke, but it like fell off. It popped off my fingers. You know, I had to glue it back on. You know, my battery died. So, you know, I had to, you know, get it all together. Alright, so that was everything for Breakdown. Breakdown's one of my favorite records. I love that song so much. You know, as many of us lambs do, because I mean it's really that one. Yeah. Then we got Baby Doll, another sexy slow jam type of vibe. like I said when I talked about 4th of July, it reminds me of 4th of July, just a little bit sexier when it comes to like context and lyrics, but the vibe is very similar. Like, you know, it's a slow jam. Like, it's cute. It's a cute song. It's not my like favorite, but I don't dislike it. Like, there's no records on this album that I dislike. It's just, for a long time, I had very specific songs that I would go back and listen to. Like Honey, My All. When I was younger, I would only mainly go back to like Honey, Butterfly, My All, The Roof, and Breakdown. Those were like my main genres for real. I know, don't roast me, y'all. I mean, y'all can roast me in the comments. That's fine. You know, bring the engagement up. I appreciate it. You know, I think as years gone by, I've slowly but surely started listening to some of the other records. Like, you know, let me listen to this record that I've been sleeping on. Or, you know, or somebody will put me onto the record and I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I not know how dope this song was? And Baby Doll was one of those songs that I had been skipping for a while. Or I would just stop listening to the album at Breakdown and, you know, that was it. And then, you know, it was one time, I guess, like, I might have had my iPod on shuffle or after, you know, getting the album. And, or I think, you know, it just played through. And I was like, you know, let me hear this song. Let me, because I would normally skip it. Once I hear that beginning, I was like, I'm not going to lie, Baby Doll was my skip song. But, you know, I realized, I was like, okay, this song is actually a vibe. But it's still not, like, my #1 favorite song. But I do like it. But like I said, it feels like it's cut from the same cloth as 4th of July. More of, like, more lean towards the R&B, you know, slow kind of vibe, sexy type of thing. You know, really cute, really cute vibes. Okay. And then after that is Close My Eyes, another song I slept on for a period of time and would skip. Just because, like, you know, at that point, I think what it was that at this very end, there were a lot of ballads here. And I would specifically go to listen to, like, the hip-hop songs. You know, I think when I first became a Mariah fan, I wasn't really into the adult contemporary vibe Mariah yet. I couldn't appreciate it at that time. Because when I first was introduced to her, it was that that Crazy Bone song, I Still Believe, with the Brat. And, you know, and then hearing her on the song with Busta Rhymes. Baby, if you give it to me, I give it to you. No, you know I got it. Because my brother would listen to Busta Rhymes all the time back in the day. And, you know, when that song would come up, I'm like, oh, that's my girl, Mariah. You know. And so I was more into like the hip hop R&B Mariah, you know, and then so like Honey and The Roof and Breakdown were like my songs. And then like I kind of got into My All because like it was on the radio. So I heard it on the radio growing up. And like it didn't sound like your regular ballad, you know, it was different. And then I think I got into Butterfly a little later on because at one point in life, back in the day when my brother was in high school and his girlfriend at the time, she knew that I loved Mariah Carey. And so she got me, I think she kind of burnt the CD. Mariah, don't come for me or her. She burnt a Greatest Hits CD. And I think Butterfly was on that record. And I remember I loved this CD down because like it put me on to new Mariah Carey songs that I didn't know I loved. Yeah, Breakdown was on there. It was a bunch of hits, like When I Believe and all of that stuff, like probably Dream Lover, like all her like hits were on that record. And I think that CD is what put me onto Butterfly, the actual Butterfly song, now that I really think about it. So anyway, a side note. Back to Close My Eyes. So Close My Eyes is one of those songs that snuck up on me later on in life. And I have a lot of appreciation towards it now. Because I feel like there was a time in my life where I resonated with the lyrics a lot. I mean, I wasn't a wayward child. My childhood wasn't terrible. there were like moments, like, you know, like, I don't know if anybody all knows, but like, you know, I didn't grow up with my mom in my life during my youth because she developed mental illness. And, you know, there was a lot of chaotic things going on at that time in my youth. And so I literally, for a period of time, had to teach myself how to become a girl. And then like later on, you know, I had another female relative live with me, one of my cousins. And then, you know, me and my brother, we were always close growing up. But then like later on in life, like in recent years, like the last few years, there's been like rifts with me and them. Which is kind of like why I resonate with Mariah's experience with her family. It wasn't exactly like that, but there were definitely moments because I'm the baby of the family, and you know, I'm the singer. Well, my brother sang too, but you know, there was this whole like golden child favoritism shenanigans. So like I really identified with those lyrics then, because like growing up, I never wanted to be that. I never wanted to be like the favorite kid or anything like that. And I would always try to shrink myself to not outshine anybody or not make other people comfortable. But like that backfired in my life anyway. Like everything that I was trying to avoid by shrinking myself ended up happening anyway. And I ended up self-destructing because, you know, I was unhappy. And I grew resentful towards, you know, certain people because they got comfortable with the shrunken version of me. And, you know, the small version of me that was easily influenced and manipulated and, you know, pushed around and stuff like that. And then once I got to a space where I was just like, I'm not taking this shit no more. You know, like, I'm not doing this, you know? And then that became a problem and then caused a lot of, like, friction and, you know, confrontation and stuff like that. And, you know, other people will explain that story in their own way and say, oh, they don't know why Nerese has a problem with them, when really, you know, my only problem was trying to avoid the problem in the first place, but then it ended up happening anyway. But beside the point, that's a side note. But I really resonated with that song and those lyrics in recent years just because of those experiences with my own family and, you know, feeling like unsafe with people who are supposed to protect you and uplift you and big you up. And just some of her experiences with like being taken advantage of or being in situations where she was put in unsafe circumstances. Like I got that for real because I've been through that several times, unfortunately, but that's the truth. You know, maybe, you know, I'll go into detail about that in the book one day or in the documentary. But, you know, it's a very personal song that she wrote. And in her book, actually, she explained, I think she started writing that song after her performance. And I forget where she was. It was like in New York somewhere. And this was at a point where she didn't really know how big her impact was. You know, like she knew she had hits and stuff like that, but she didn't really tour like that. I think she might have only did like a few small performances, maybe some TV show performances and unplugged. But she hadn't done like a full tour. And so she didn't know her impact and like her fan base at that point. And it was like the first time where she saw people like stand out in lines and fill up I think it was like a auditorium or like a, like, you know, like a small hall, not a small hall, but it was like a hall and it filled up and it was like people blocking traffic, you know, to see her. And she didn't know her impact at this point. Just because she was so sheltered and controlled by Tommy Mottola at this point. And I think that night after going home, she started writing that song. And I think she was saying like she took a bath and it was a full moon. And in that song she writes, when I look at the moon, maybe I grew up a little too soon. Da, 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 da. Love that song. But yeah, no, I have a appreciation for that song, just with everything that I've been through in my own life. So Mariah, I feel you. And the great thing about that song sonically is that she's not like doing a big vocal number with that. She's not doing a bunch of runs and well, there are some runs, but she's not like belting and you know, hitting all these high notes or anything like that. Like it's a very like, it's one of the easier songs to sing along to on the album. And what really shines here is like the vocal stacking, because towards the end where and then there's a lot going on and she's doing runs. I don't know where that cut off. Of course it was going to cut me off in the middle of my vocals. But you know the parts when she's all like all of those are going on in the background and then she's doing you know, and just all these like beautiful melodies and runs and stuff. Like the vocal stacking in that record is really what shines, as opposed to like her doing like these big like runs and belting and like hitting all these high notes. Like she doesn't really do that there. It's mostly like her expressing her truth and her experience through the lyrics. So next record is Whenever You Call, which is one of those classic ballad, adult contemporary pop kind of song. And to me, it's the Anytime You Need a Friend of the album in terms of context. But if this and Outside were two songs put together, it would really be the Anytime You Need a Friend, because I feel like Outside has like a little bit of the gospel nuances, whereas Anytime You Need a Friend has like the choir and everything, and she's like really giving it vocally. But we'll get to Outside soon. Anytime You Need a Friend. I mean, no, sorry. Whenever You Call. Whenever you come. Oh, yeah. Love that song. I skipped that one for a period of time, not gonna lie. Just because it was that classic adult contemporary Mariah, and I didn't have the appreciation for it as a kid because it just sounded old to me. And I wanted to hear like, you know, breakdown. But now that I'm older and I can go back to that song and really listen to it for what it is, and just like the lyrics and just like the vocal ability, like it's one of those really classic type of ballads that, you know, solidifies her in that conversation of songs like that her, Whitney Houston, and Celine Dion would do. You know, those are the type of, that song is that type of, you know, record that puts her in that conversation, because she taps so many different types of genres and she can do so many different things. But that's that type of record where, you know, when people say, oh, the Whitneys and the Mariahs and, you know, the trinity of vocals, like that's one of those songs, because not only just the vibe of the song, but like the vocal agility, like she really goes for it with this song. Like it's a power ballad, vocal power, you know, powerhouse. You know, there's power in the song, basically, is what I'm trying to say. It's power in the song. And it's another one of those songs with the traditional Mariah vocal structure where it's a build up and then at the very end she gives you the belts and the runs. But the thing is with this song, she's doing runs at like the top of her like belting register. And, you know, and then there's a key change. And like, you know, very traditional, classic ballad type of record. And you know what's funny? I had a little side note on in my notes. A side note in the notes. Literally, it's on the side of the paper. But like how I was saying, Anytime You Need a Friend kind of reminds me, or this record reminds me of that. Similarly to how Best I Never Had reminds me of Irreplaceable, like Beyonce records, because I'm like, Best I Never Had is the Irreplaceable of the 4 album. And mind you, I didn't really care for those records back in the day. I know people gonna roast me. I already got roasted on Twitter for saying that I really didn't care for that song. Whatever. Beehive, you can roast me all day. It's fine. You know, I am one of y'all, you know, so whatever. You know, and you know, Beehive be lethal, but I can be too, so what's up? But I mean, I love Beyonce, I just don't care for that song. Because you know what it is? It's a very commercial sounding song. And I usually don't care for commercial sounding songs because it sounds like it's supposed to be a single. And I usually, like even growing up listening to music, I would avoid the singles when I listen to an album because I want to hear the B-sides. I want to hear the records that's not on the radio 100 times, you know? But, and so Irreplaceable was one of those songs that had to grow on me because it was like one of those records that was on the radio. And it was the biggest song on that album because it had mainstream, you know, commercial type of sound. But, you know, I love so many other songs on the B-Day album. But anyway, that's a side note. And, you know, I love Beyonce. Shout out to Beyonce. She's going to be one of the next reviews that we do here at the House of Divinity. So be on the lookout for that because I'm going to be talking Renaissance. And not only am I going to be talking Renaissance, I'm going to be talking Renaissance and the rollout process because y'all know I love to talk a little bit about the business behind the tea, behind the scenes, the tea behind the scenes. And you know, and I really paid attention to her strategy and just like how she went about rolling out this album and how like can't nobody drop boxes with no pictures like Beyonce right now. I'm just saying. But you know, that's another video, another discussion. We'll get to that. And you know, right now we're in a weird standstill, like waiting for the visuals because the album's been out for like over a month now and we have no music video. There's been teasers, but teasers usually happen when the video's about to come out shortly after, and that did not happen. So we're waiting, Beyonce, but we will continue to wait until you're ready. But anyway, back to Mariah. Yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about with Whenever You Call. Fly Away, Butterfly Reprise. Now, I love this song so much. This was one of those songs that snuck up on me. And now that I'm thinking about it, I remember exactly how I stumbled across this song. I think I had the album on my iPod, classic. And I had it on shuffle. And this popped up. And usually I would skip this. I don't know why. You know, the beginning sounds beautiful. I would usually skip it because I was kind of in that phase where I only had those few songs on this album that I would listen to. And, you know, I think I might have been doing something where I wasn't able to skip it. And then I was listening and I was like, oh, wait, hold on. Hold on now. Come on, vocals. Okay. The wah, 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 wah. Like, you know, like the warpy piano sound. Sounds very like ethereal and like magical and mystical. And and you know, her singing, don't be afraid, spread your wings. You know, or however it goes. And then she's doing like the whistle notes here, which mind you, something else that I wanted to mention was that she doesn't really do a lot of whistle notes on this album. There's very few songs where she might implement it, but if she does, it's usually like in the background somewhere. Like she's not like, that's the high selling point of this album. It's not like a song with emotions where the whistle note is like the big moment, but like an octave higher, you know? It's not like that. She's putting, this is where you're really starting to hear her put the whistle tone in the background and have it be like a layer and an element within the song rather than be like the big moment, you know? And so you hear that in the beginning of this intro, and it's like, you know, it's a build-up. It's like really slow and like, you know, you're in a meadow and like fairies and butterflies are going by. No pun intended. Pun intended. And then, you know, you start to hear like the beat come in and then the chorus is coming in. And it's like, oh, hold on. This is a whole bop right here. And it slowly builds into a house bop. And, you know, and I never paid attention to that kind of it being like a house mix kind of a vibe until like just now. Because, I mean, I knew the song, I heard it. I knew it's like, okay, it's one of those like slow builders. But I really thought about it like, this is really a house mix. Like recently because, you know, earlier this year before Beyonce, before Beyonce put out Renaissance, you know, there was this whole house talk because she put out Break My Soul and Drake put out his album which had like this whole like dance kind of vibe. And so everybody was talking about house music. And you know, the funny thing is, now that Renaissance is out, is not a house album that people thought it was going to be. It just so happened that Break My Soul was a house record, you know, but there's a lot of different flavors and variety of dance music within the album. But this is not the Renaissance video, but I mentioned that for a reason. So, you know, there was a lot of discussion about like house music making a comeback. And everybody doing house music and house mixes. And, you know, you got people like Kate Trinata that's been, like, blowing up as a DJ, like, for the last few years. And then you have, I think Austin Mills is his name. Has, like, a lot of viral sounds going on IG and TikTok. Like, and at first, you know, when I first started hearing some of his beats, I was like, this is giving me very Kate Trinata. But lately, I've been hearing his mixes kind of sound a little bit switched up a bit. So it sounds more like him, versus it sounding like, you know, great value Kate Trinata. Not that it was sounding like great value Kate Trinata, no shade, you know, but I mean, his beats were dope, don't get me wrong, his beats still dope, but I was like, you know, and a lot of people in the comments were saying that, and I was thinking like, this is giving very Katra, you know, shout out to Katra, we got his record over here, but, you know, he started kind of developing his own style and his own sound, but he does a lot of those mixes, those, you know, those upbeat mixes to like classic R&B songs and pop records and stuff like that, and it has like that house element to it just a little bit. So that's been a conversation that people have been having lately about like this resurgence of house music. And you know, I was really thinking about it, and it's funny because Austin Mills also did a remix of Always Be My Baby by Mariah Carey, and that went viral, and then he released it as a single with, you know, Mariah's permission and her giving him the license to, earlier this year. So fun fact and connection there. But I say this to say, you know, with everybody talking about like, oh, house music making a comeback, you know, if we're going to talk about house music, we need to talk about this artist and this artist and this underground artist, you know. And it made me think, like, when everybody was talking about that, I'm like, yo, Mariah Carey has been doing house remixes for years. Okay? And when I was reading, I was listening to the book. Shout out to her on Audible, because her doing that book on Audible and to hear her kind of like sing along, kind of like how I'm doing this review, was like epic, and I love that. And you know what? I actually mentioned that before in my innovative women in music rants. I think that's on, is it on this page? No, it's not on House of Divinity. I uploaded it on Nerys, the artist page. So I might put that video over here because it's more of a House of Divinity style video where I'm like discussing music and stuff. So I might upload that video on here. So check that out too, where I talk about Mariah Carey, you know, being an innovative woman in music and basically bridging and creating R&B pop. So that's a whole nother thing. But I realized, I'm like, as I'm listening to this album again, I'm like, yo, this is a house mix for real that made it on the album. Because usually what she'll do is she'll have the single, and the single will be its thing, and then she'll have an EP of remixes, and then she'll have like DJs, like some Morales guy, I've seen him like remix a bunch of her stuff, and like, you know, other DJs remix her music and the singles and make them into like house mixes, club mixes, and stuff like that. So Mariah's kind of been like ahead of the game when it comes to like all this like house music talk that everybody's been saying earlier this year, and like dance music. Like, she's been doing that because, like, of course, like I said before, you know, she does a lot of ballad music or a lot of like slow songs, or if it's upbeat, it's a song that showcases her vocal ability, but she's not like a dancer. You know what I'm saying? So she's not going to have a lot of dance songs on the album. But what she will do is have a DJ remix her records and make a mix. And speaking of this album, there is an EP of remixed versions of the Butterfly song. And so it's interesting to see the Fly Away Butterfly Reprise make it onto the album, because it reminds me of some of those records that would be a remixed record. And something else that I like about this record sonically is that even though it doesn't sound the same as the Butterfly song, you know, she kept the chorus element with it. Like how you have the chorus singing, "Spread your wings and prepare to fly, for you to become a butterfly, oh, you know. And then for the Reprise, it's the same thing, but you know, it's changed up. Spread your wings and better fly, for you to become a butterfly, you know. And they just like amped it up, and I'm just like, wow, the contrast of that record, that's like really fly that they did that. You to become a butterfly, you know, it's a vibe. But yeah, I love that record so much. I spent a lot of time talking about it. All right, we almost done, y'all. We almost done. Beautiful Ones with Dru Hill. And this is a Prince cover. So here's the thing. I was very surprised that this made it onto the album. I'm not 100% sure if she probably talked a little bit about it on the book, but I don't really recall her doing that. But my thing is, I was surprised that this was on the album, because Prince was very particular about his music back in the day. Like, he was really preaching and fighting for ownership early. And that's another video idea that I've been thinking about. A discussion about him and Michael Jackson when it comes to like ownership of music. You know, I don't really see too many people talking about it. So we're going to talk about it. That's another video coming up. So be on the lookout for that. But at this time, this was when Prince was kind of like beefing with Warner Brothers, because, you know, they owned the rights to his music and he wanted to own his rights. And they were like, nah, nigga, this our song now, basically. And you know, that's when he had that whole like slave thing going on, and you know, the artist formerly known as Prince, because he didn't own his name anymore. It was crazy. And so, you know, this was during a time where he was really like advocating for people not giving up their ownership. And you know, and you hear so many artists now say they wanted to collab with Prince, but he's like, do you own your masters? Excuse me. Do you own your masters? And, you know, Nas said he almost had a chance to work with Prince, but he didn't own his masters. But that was a nugget for him. Like, alright. And that's why he kind of got into that now. And with Alicia Keys, when she wrote Like I Never See You Again, it was very similar to Purple Rain, apparently, like the original version. And she met with him to get his permission to have that record. And he was like, look, I'm not letting these record label heads put their kids through tuition, like pay their kids tuition on my stuff, you know, so no. And Purple Rain was on the album Purple Rain, right? And so he didn't give Alicia Keys permission to use that record, because he knew the record labels were going to profit off of that if he like okayed her getting the license, you know. And even though he doesn't own rights to the music, she went to him to get that permission. And that's a really interesting point on the whole like Khalees Beyonce situation. I wasn't really going to talk much about that, but I might a little bit. We'll think about that. But yeah, so she basically got his permission. And he was like, look, you can make it close but not quite. But no, basically. And so she didn't end up using that song. And but yeah, his whole thing was like, no, like these record labels own my shit, and you know, I don't own that song. And so now back to Beautiful Ones. I'm thinking Beautiful Ones is on the same album as Purple Rain, a record that I also have over here too. And you know, and so I'm thinking like, how was she able to get that cleared, you know? Because even today, like, okay, I think Beyonce, I have to double check this, but I'm pretty sure when she covered Beautiful Ones for the I'm Yours live performance, because she did a cover of it, and she did a like a mashup of Beautiful Ones and That's Why You're Beautiful, which is like one of my favorite Beyonce songs that people sleep on. They sleep on that record. That's Why You're Beautiful on I Am Sasha Fierce. like one of the better ballads on that album. And you know, she did like a mashup of the two songs, That's Why You're Beautiful and Beautiful Ones. Like she kind of did Crazy by Gnarls Barkley. I hope I'm saying that right. And, you know, Crazy in Love. So she likes to do those mashup type of things. But when you listen to the song, like the album version of the song, Beautiful Ones is cut out. So that record isn't on the CD. I'm pretty sure. I remember listening to it like, damn, why isn't this on here? And that was around the time where you couldn't find a lot of Prince's music on YouTube. And that's because he was like, if you want to hear my music, you got to buy it from me. And I respect that. So, you know, back to Mariah. It's interesting that this song is on here. So I think, you know, granted, when these artists wanted to collaborate with him or sample his music, it was like later into like the 2000s. So I think by this point, he had a little bit more understanding and say so on, you know, how to tell people, no, you can't use this record. So, you know, I think it's interesting that, you know, Mariah was able to get this cover cleared and put on the album. And, you know, I wonder, like, what the full story behind that is. You know, I might have to listen to the book again and see if she, like, touches on that. But I don't remember her saying anything about it. But she probably did, like, briefly. But anyway, it's a beautiful song. They ate this up. Dru Hill, Cisco tore up this song vocally. And, you know, and it was very sexy. It was very, like, you know, and she was doing her little talkity thing. And, you know, I love this one run that she does, like, before the very end. How does it go? She kind of, I'm trying to think of what she does leading up to it, but it's, like, basically, like, I may not know what I'm going through. I may not know, I may not know, or whatever the words are. You know, I don't be knowing none of these lyrics, okay? But I just love that part. Like, you know, and like I hadn't heard her do that run before, so the first time I had listened to that song all the way through, I was like, ooh, okay, ooh, let me put that in the bank, you know? But yeah, I love how they executed this record. It was one of my favorite covers. And, you know, because it was Mariah, that's probably why he might have been like, all right, you got that one, girl. You got that. But I'm surprised he didn't let Beyonce, you know, do the cover. But then again, Beyonce was still like kind of on the come up at this point. You know, like granted, I feel like I Am Sasha Fierce solidified her as an icon. But, you know, to Prince, you know, it was like, okay, a few years ago we performed at the BET Awards together and you were still a youngin'. You know, so maybe that was probably what his whole thing. And then again, like, it was sometime, like, this was in the 90s. This was when he was, like, new into his protest. So he was probably, like, still learning in different ways that he can, you know, tell artists, no, don't sample my stuff. They did that, though. All right, y'all. We on the last record. The Last John, okay? Outside. This was another one of those songs, like I said, you know, that snuck up on me. And, you know, how I discovered this song was mostly because Mariah would talk a lot about it, because Lambs would talk a lot about it, and how this song saved their life, and, you know, and how this is like the anthem for biracial folks. And I was like, why do I not know this song? And she was like, you know, my song Outside off of Butterfly. And I'm like, I know Butterfly. So I'm like, how do I not know this song? So I went back and listened to this song, and I've been listening to it again because, you know, I was taking notes preparing for this video, and I was thinking, wow, this is such a powerful song. And, you know, there's so much to break down here. So this is another one of those songs where she gets personal, right? Kind of similar to Close My Eyes, whereas Close My Eyes is more about her family life and her growing up as a child, but also this is more about her growing up being biracial, you know, and having a white mother and a black father, and just how she always felt like other and different and like she didn't fit in. And you know, and it was kind of like one of those like uplifting ballads, because at first I was like, dang, this is kind of a sad song to end the album with, Mariah. But you know, when I was really listening to the lyrics, you know, it's kind of like that thing where it's like, you know, keep going anyway. You know, like, yeah, I feel different. Yeah, I feel like I don't fit in, but you know, no matter how hard you try, you keep going, type of thing. And just like, oh my gosh, the vocal approach to this, again, her classic structure, you know, build up, build up, build up, and then just like wail with the belts and the runs at the end. And it was just amazing. You know, there's one part of the song that just really gets me, you know, at that very end. And, you know, something that really adds to this song that makes me think of Emancipation of Mimi, actually, is that, you know, this is a ballad. It's one of those ballad songs, classic ballad vibes, but it has gospel nuances in the melody. Like, there's just certain moments in like the piano and the production, and just even like how she sings, where there's like, it feels like those gospel moments. And you know, and it's not a gospel song, but it has like certain moments where it's like, ooh, okay, that's giving me like, okay, you sprinkled a little church in there, you know. And I love that. And I love when she does that in music. And you know, and it reminds me of her ending with Fly Like a Bird on Emancipation of Mimi. You know, like, she'll do that. She'll have those records where she sprinkled a little bit of church. This had a little bit of it. Fly Like a Bird was like full on church. Like, it was like, you know, full on, we are praying through this whole song, you know. But this song was kind of like that. It gave me those like slight gospel nuances. And also, like I was saying before, like, if this and Whenever You Call were like put together as one song, it would basically be like the Anytime You Need a Friend of the album. Because Anytime You Need a Friend has gospel vibes down with the choir, and you know, and Kelly Price and her sister singing backgrounds. Like, and I'm pretty sure they sang backgrounds on this album too, with Butterfly and the Reprise. But you know, like, when you got those soulful choral vibes in the song, and it's like that strong power ending, oh man, like, take me to church, honey. Yes, I love it. And you know, I think it was a powerful way to end the song, and it's very like uplifting, and it makes other people who feel ostracized in their own way feel seen. And you know, and I had an appreciation for that song, because again, like kind of like what I was saying about like my family situation was kind of an ongoing circumstance with like friendships and stuff too, and just feeling like, you know, at one point, just like, where do I fit in the world? Like, you know, I thought I fit in with so many different people, and then I felt like the closer I was getting to like the version of myself that I've always wanted to be, and the closer to the real me that's not holding back and dimming my light for people, the less people I had around me that I felt like, you know, understood me, you know. And so this record was like a big one for me too, you know, even though I'm not biracial, you know, I mean, probably somewhere down the bloodline maybe, you know, but you know, both my parents are black. Gratefully, I'm exotically black. But you know, I resonated with the lyrics though, and I see why people would say like this song saved their life, and you know, why so many people felt seen with this record. And I feel like this was an important way, in a beautiful way, emotionally, lyrically, sonically, you know, it was a beautiful way to end the album. And that's my take on the Butterfly album. Now, there were some points that I wanted to say overall, which I pretty much said all through this, and I'll just breeze through those real quick, and then we'll end the video. This is still my favorite Mariah record to date. And there, like I said, there was only a few things that I didn't really care for with the album. I wish there were like a little bit more upbeat records, but you know, Honey and the Butterfly Reprise were like great enough for me. And it's not one of those like dancing albums. It's like a chill, laid back, you know, you put this on, you know, you chillin' type of vibe. Or like, usually when I think of this album, I think of a night ride, because I think of like when I was a kid and I was listening to the songs on this album, like driving with my dad, like, you know, whether I was like going to visit family or like, you know, we were doing some type of road trip to go somewhere. And I would just think of like night rides with this album on. And so like, you know, this is like a night ride on a cool night, warm, or, you know, you're just chilling in the house, or like, you know, you could clean up to this album, take a shower to this album, you can cook to this album, you can do anything, really, do some laundry to this album, you know. But I wouldn't say it's like a dance album. I mean, it gets you dancing, it gets you up, you know, in the beginning, where it's like you put it on and it's like, all right, it gets me going. And then like once you're there, you're like in the flow of it, you know. And again, like the only thing was that I didn't like that Butterfly was right after Honey. I mean, if you read the track list, it looks like, okay, Honey, Butterfly, like it's a vibe, you know, the nature things. But like sonically, you know, I felt like it slowed it down a little too much right after such an upbeat record. But other than that, I mean, I love the song though. Like, you know, it's not like I don't like the song. I love the whole album. There's not a song on this album that I don't like. You know, there are songs that I like more than others, but this is one of the few like flawless albums. Masterpiece, start to finish. You know, like lyrically, vocally, arranging, you know, production, features, you know, engineering. Like the whole album, the engineering was amazing. You know, and just like the fact that, yeah, there is a lot of like slower songs, mid-tempo type of records, but they all are so different from another. Like that was another point that I wanted to mention, was like I love the mix of genres, from like pop and hip hop from Honey, and then you have like the Latin influence in My All, and then you have like your traditional like adult contemporary records. But even those adult contemporary records were different from one another. Like you got the chorus choir on Butterfly, and then you have Close My Eyes, which is like very laid back vocally and is mainly just her doing the vocal stackings. And then you have like I said, Outside, with like the gospel influences, even though there weren't, I don't think there were, was there a chorus in that song? I don't think so. I didn't write that down. But either way, it had gospel influences, whereas like Butterfly had a choir, but it didn't feel like a gospel song. You know what I mean? So there's so many different things. And then, you know, Whenever You Call, like being that classic adult contemporary power ballad song. And then you have like the hip hop influenced songs, and even those songs within themselves don't sound anything alike. Like I said that earlier, you know, like Breakdown, The Roof, Honey, you know. And then you also have another feature, which I be forgetting about, with Drew Hill, you know, an R&B group being featured on a Prince cover, and they killed it, you know. Like Beautiful Ones is one of my favorite Prince songs, like on the Purple Rain album, and they ate it up, you know, tore it up. And yeah, and then you have like her, you kind of get the vibe of her getting into her like hot girl, sexy, you know, songstress vibes with 4th of July and Baby Doll, a little bit of The Roof. And even Honey is like a fun, playful song, but it's a little sexy too, you know. And I just love the overall vibes of this album, like start to finish is just chef's kiss. And shout out to Derek Jeter for being a huge inspiration of a majority of this album. Thank you. Thanks. And another thing was that, kind of like what I was saying about Fantasy basically being the stepping stone for us to get Breakdown, and you know, all these other records with like I said, with the hip hop influence. Basically, Daydream walked so butterfly could fly. Pun intended. And with that said, this concludes my review of this masterpiece of an album, Mariah Carey. I don't know if you just happened to see this in your life, or you're just chilling in your mansion with them babies, you know, little babies. Thank you for not giving up on your dream. Thank you for, even when you were living your dreams and you were going through it and, you know, it was a tough time. I'm grateful that you never gave up. I'm grateful that you are still here today as a living legend. Not only have you inspired so many people, but you inspired me as a vocalist, as a girl, as a woman. You know, the experiences that you went through, like, I feel you, sis. I feel you. But, you know, thank you for honing your skills to transmute circumstances and situations in your life, the good and the bad, into something beautiful that can be shared and appreciated through something as universal as music. You know, not enough people give you your flowers, so I'm gonna give you your flowers. And you know, you just got a bouquet of flowers just chilling over here. You know, and this album is a classic and will remain for all of time. So, you know, I just gotta send you your love, Mariah. And to my divine friends and family who've gotten this far, if you've gotten this far in the video, drop some gold hearts, you know, some yellow hearts, some gold hearts, or you know what, drop a honey pot, or you know, or anything. Just drop some emojis, you know, whether it's a honey pot, a butterfly, you know, a lamb. If you a lamb, drop a lamb. If honey your favorite song, drop a honey pot. If butterfly your favorite song, drop a butterfly, whatever. You know, put some emojis in the comments, but then also give me your opinions and your takes. Like, you know, what songs did you agree with some of the points that I said, or what songs do you feel like, oh girl, you know, I wish you talked more about this song. Even though I don't know how I could talk any more about these records. You know, did you agree? Did you disagree? Were there some songs where it's like, girl, You know, let me know in the comments below. Kiki in the comments. And, you know, spill your tea. And, you know, we'll keep on and carry on. I love you guys. All right. And one more thing that I wanted to say. Merch. We got Divine merch on the website. Check that out. You know, we got t-shirts, hoodies, and everything. And make sure you like, comment, share this video, and subscribe. If you enjoy the Divine friend and family vibe, subscribe. Much love to you all. I love you all so much. Thanks for watching. And comment what I should talk about next. Should I talk about more Mariah Carey albums? I got Emancipation of Mimi. I got other albums that I love of hers. So let me know in the comments what's the next album I should review. You know, we should have more moments where we give flowers to our living legends. So let me know in the comments below. It's your girl Nerese, and I'm outie. Much love to you.